Hello everyone, I am Durga Saujanya, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, MLR Institute of Technology. I am going to give the video session on the subject Embedded System Design. In last session, we have discussed part 1 of typical embedded system, core of the embedded system. So we will continue that session. So in the core of the embedded system, mainly it is the brain of the embedded system. In this, we have discussed what are the processors available for designing the core of the embedded system. So in that, we have discussed the previous session, which is what are the general purpose processors, what are the application specific instruction set processors, and what are the application specific integrated circuits and digital signal processors. So these are all discussed in the last session. So now we are continuing with that session. Here in this session, we are comparing different types of processors available in the market, and based on that comparison, how can we select the processor for our embedded system design. The first one is CISC versus RISC processors, Harvard versus von Neumann architecture, NDNS, the programmable logic devices, application specific integrated circuits, commercial off-the-shelf components. So these are the topics we are going to discuss in the present session. The first one is RISC and CISC processors. Here, based on the instruction set, the architecture of the design will be in by using the two types of processors. One is RISC processor, another one is CISC processor. RISC processor is nothing but reduced instruction set computer. CISC is complex instruction set computer. Here, reduced instruction set computer is nothing but we are reducing some of the instructions from the main instruction set, and with that reduced instruction sets, we have to design our architecture. In the complex instruction set computer, there are more number of instruction sets are to be there, and here in the RISC processors, we have to use separate instructions for registers, for register transferring, and separate instructions for memory transferring. But in CISC processor, we have to use the same instructions for register transferring and memory transferring. So here for CISC, we have to use the same instructions for two types of transferring, and here different instructions are to be used for register transferring and memory transferring. So that means here in the RISC processor, we have the load and store instructions in the architecture for developing the instruction set. So here these load and store instructions are specifically used for memory operations. For register operations, we have to use the general purpose instructions, which are move, in, out, so etc. But for CISC processors, we are not having specific memory instructions. The instructions which are used for register transfer, those are only used for memory transfer also. Just like the move instruction, which is used for both register transfer, like move A, B, and move A, some data, and move the data from A to the specified memory location 2400. So that means here there is no separate instructions for memory operations. In the RISC processor, we have the separate instructions for memory operations. So here the reduced instruction set computing, we have the reduced instruction set in this architecture. In this architecture, we have the complex instruction set. Here it contains the lesser number of instructions. That's why it is called as reduced instruction set computer. Here we have more number of instructions. The instruction pipelining is used in this RISC processor, and hence the execution speed is increased. So what is meant by pipelining? So pipelining is, here the pipelining is nothing but, here for execution of any instruction, there are three processes are there. The first one is opcode fetch. Second one is decode the data. The third one is execution. So here for any processor, the instruction may be executed in this sequence only. So first it need to fetch the opcode from the memory, and after that it decodes the data and it takes the data from the memory, and after that it will execute whatever the operation to be executed on that data. So here in the pipelining, so after completion of the opcode fetch, we need to go for decode data. After that only we need to go for execution. But in the pipelining, for first instruction, if it completes the opcode fetch, so the second instruction starts the opcode fetch and the first instruction starts the decode data. So while the first instruction moves to the execution, the second instruction moves to the decode data, and the third instruction will start the fetching the opcode. So in this way, parallelly, number of instructions are to be executed in parallelly. So this is called as pipelining process. So this will be implemented in RISC processors. Why? Because here the separate memory will be used for memory and register transfer operations. We have to use the memory only for instructions separately and memory for data separately. So that's why we can have the fetch opcode, means the instruction memory will be used here and here the data memory will be used here. So that means after completion of the first process, the instruction memory will be free. So now we have to use that memory for second instruction. And now in the second process, it will use the data memory. So in that here, the data memory will be used by first instruction and the program memory will be used by second instruction. So in this way, parallelly the number of instructions will be executed. This type of processing is called as pipelining. So the pipelining will be used in the RISC processor and hence the speed of the execution will be increases. So here the instruction pipelining feature does not exist. Why? Because here the same memory can be used for both program and data, and here the same number of instructions will be used for both memory transfer and register data transfer. So that here the pipelining will not be possible. Here the orthogonal instruction set operate on any register and any addressing mode. Orthogonal instruction set will be there in RISC processors. Orthogonal instruction set is nothing but we have the separate instructions for memory, load and store, and the separate instructions for the register data transfer. So that is called as orthogonal instruction set, so that it can allow any addressing mode for any type of registers. Here the non-orthogonal set will be implemented for CISC processors. The operations are performed on registers only and only memory operations are load and store. Here whatever the operation we have taken for that instruction, it will be performed only on the registers or it will be performed only on the memory. So that means no instruction will be common for both register data transfer and memory data transfer. So here the operations are performed either on registers or on memory depending on the instruction. So in the instruction, it will be used for both memory and registers. So here the large number of registers are available. As we have separate instructions for the registers, there is possibility for large number of registers. Here the entire instruction set will be used for both registers and memory. So we can use the same registers or memory locations for storing the data. So that here the number of registers are limited. Here the programmer needs to write the memory code to execute a task since instructions are simpler ones. So here we need to execute the code. So here it can use the macros and functions for writing the programmers. It is single and fixed length instruction set. So here we have the variable length instruction. Here in the CISC processor, the instructions are used same for memory data transfer of registers and data transfer on memory. So that means let us take an example of some move a comma 1 2 3 4 data. So it takes the data transfer into the register. So let it takes 4 machine cycles. And next one more operation which is move some 2000 memory location comma A. So that means whatever the data present in the A will be moved to the memory location 2000. So that means here first we need to take the data from the accumulator and we need to store each data, lower byte data in one location, upper byte data in another location. So that means it may take more than 4 machine cycles. So that means here the instruction length will be different for each instruction. So here we have the variable length instructions. So here as we have used the same instruction for register transferring and same instructions for memory transferring, so here the instruction length will be fixed. So these are the comparison between the RISC processor and CISC processor. Based on these features, we can select the required CISC processor or CISC processor for our application. And the next one is the architectures used for processor design, which are Harvard or von Neumann architecture. So based on this comparison, we can choose the required architecture based on our application. First, Harvard architecture. So Harvard architecture, it uses separate memory blocks for program and data. So the Harvard architecture uses one memory block for program, one memory block for data. But here in von Neumann architecture, the same memory can be shared by both program and data. So that means here we can use separate memory blocks. So if we want to store the data in the program memory, we want to store our instructions or program in the program memory, we can use program memory. If we want to do the data related operations, we can use data memory. But here in von Neumann architecture, so the same memory will be used by program and data, so that here we need to take separate parts of the memory. One part of the memory can be used for program and one part of the memory will be used for data storing. So here it has separate buses for instructions as well as data fetching. As we have separate memory blocks for data transferring, so we need to use separate buses for the program memory and data memory. Here it shares a single common bus for instruction and data fetching. Here we have only one memory for both program and data. We have to use only a single bus. So here it is easy to pipeline, so high performance can be achieved. As we have separate memories for program and data, so we can implement pipelining process in this architecture and hence the performance can be high. So here there is no possibility for pipelining process. So it has the low performance compared with the Harvard architecture. So it comparatively it has high cost. As we have used two separate memory blocks, so we have to purchase two memory blocks for designing this architecture. So it will be high cost compared with von Neumann architecture. So it is cheaper. Since the data memory and program memory are stored physically in different locations, there is no chance for accidental corruption of program memory. So that means here the memory alignment is not be required. Here the memory alignment will be required. So the accidental corruption of program memory may occur if the data memory and program memory are stored physically in the same chip. As we have used the same memory for program and data, here the overloading of the program with data or overloading of data with program may occur. But here there is no possibility for occurring that type of problem. And in this here the memory alignment is so not required as we have separate memories. So in this the memory alignment will be required. And the next one is endianness. So endianness is nothing but it defines the way in which the data stored in the memory. So that means how can we store our data in the memory. So how can we store the lower order byte will be stored in which location, higher order byte will be stored in which location. So that will be defined by the endianness. So it specifies the order in which the data is stored in the memory by the processor operations in a multi-byte system. So there are two types are there. One is little endian processor, another one is big endian processor. Little endian processor is nothing but here in little endian processor, the lower order data byte is stored in the lowest memory location and higher order data byte is stored in the highest memory location. So let us take an example. So here if it is 2000 and it is 2001, it is 2002, it is 2003. So the lower order byte of the data is stored in the lowest memory location of the memory and here the higher order byte of the data is stored in the highest memory location. So this type of process is called as little endian processor. And another one is big endian processor. So in this big endian processor, the higher order data will be stored in the lower order. So as in the same as in the previous way, here it is 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. So in this big endian processors, the higher order data will be stored in the lowest memory location and the lower order data will be stored in the highest memory location. So this is the difference between the big endian processors and little endian processors. Next one is programmable logic devices. So here up to now we have discussed the general purpose processors and application specific processors and application specific instruction set processors. And the next one is programmable logic devices. Here the logic devices provide specific functions including device to device interfacing, data communication or signal processing, data display, timing and control operations and other function that the system will perform. So for any system to perform by the processor, we need to use the device to device interfacing or we need to use the logic devices for implementing any operation. Here, what are the logic devices we have? The AND gates and OR gates. So by using these AND or NOT gates, we can implement any design. So by using this method, we can have two types of logic devices are there. One is fixed logic device. Another one is programmable logic device. In the fixed logic device, so these are called as permanent devices in which we have the fixed setup for designing the design of an embedded system with logic gates. So here they can perform one function or set of functions and once manufactured, we cannot change anything in that design. But while going to the programmable logic devices, it offers a wide range of logic capacity, features, speed, voltage characteristics and these can be reconfigured to perform any number of functions at any time. So while here we are using the programmable capability. So here in the fixed logic devices, we are fixing the logic implementation for the design so that we cannot have any possibility for changing. Here we can use the programmable method. So only in the software by programming we can change our application or our operations so that we can use this for a wide range of applications and we can implement this for any number of functions at any time. So the designers can use inexpensive software tools. So by programming we can change the design easily so that the inexpensive software tools are to be enough for designing this type of logic devices. So these are used to quickly develop, simulate and test the logic designs in PLD based designs. So it is quickly programmed into the device and immediately can be tested. So these are based on rewritable memory technology and these are reprogrammed to change the design. So we have the flexibility to change our design by using this programmable logic devices. And the next one is ASICs, which are application specific integrated circuits. Here the microchip designed to perform a specific or unique application. So this is the specific integrated circuit, a specific chip. So a single chip which is used for defining any application for a particular embedded system. So it can be used for general purpose logic chips or we can use for a specific application. So these have these several functions into a single chip and reduces the system development cost. So what is meant by ASIC? So here, what are the required components for our embedded system? So we need to select those components first. After selecting all the components required for the design, after programming all the components, we can design all the components on a single chip and we do not have any other connections outside the chip. So on the single chip only, what are the required components for that design will be available. So those are all to be manufactured on a single chip. So most of the ASICs are proprietary products. So as a single chip, it can occupy very less area and it helps in the design of smaller systems with high capabilities. So once it is fabricated, it cannot be changed. So it can be fabricated for a special application or it can be custom fabricated by using the components from reusable building blocks. So we can fabricate this chip with new components or by using the existing components also. So therefore library of components are used for the particular application based on the customer requirement. So the fabrication of ASICs requires a non-refundable initial investment, which is called as non-recurring engineering cost. So this will be the cost for ASICs. These are used for the process technology and configuration expenses. So if the non-recurring engineering charges can be done by the third party, so this ASIC will be made open available in the market and is referred as application specific standard product. So if the third party is handed over this ASIC and it can bear the non-engineering cost as non-recurring engineering cost occurred for this ASIC, so then it should be called as application specific standard product. And the next one is commercial off-the-shelf components. So what are the commercial off-the-shelf components? So these are known as, so if we want to update the existing systems and if we want to add any new components to the existing systems and we now want to add any new features to the existing system, so then the design will be called as commercial off-the-shelf components. So these are designed in such a way to provide easy integration and interoperability with existing system components. For the existing system components to provide the interoperability and easy integration, we can go to the cards. So here the examples for cards are the toy cards with RF security part, which is having high performance and high frequency microwave electronics, high bandwidth analog to digital converters, high temperature operated sensors, electro-optic IR imaging arrays, UV or IR detectors. So these are the examples for the cards. Here it contains a general purpose processor or application specific processor. So whatever the processor we have already in the existing system, so we cannot change that processor, but we need to use some more instructions or some more operations and we need to add some more blocks to develop or to extend that existing system into the new one. So the major advantage of cards is that they are readily available in the market. So that they are cheap and the developer can cut down that development according to their application requirement and they can implement that into a great extent. So these are the different types of processors available in the core of the embedded system. So in the previous session we have discussed that what is the core of the embedded system, that is the brain of the embedded system. It contains different types of processors like the general purpose processor and application specific instruction set processor and application specific integrated circuits or PLDs or cards. In general purpose processors, again there are different types of processors are available like microprocessors, microcontrollers. For application specific instruction set processors, these are specifically designed based on the domain. Hence, these are called as domain specific processors. In this, we have discussed the digital signal processors. And next one is what are the different types of processors are there, and we have compared those processors. Based on that comparison, we can select the required processor for our application. So, selection of the processor maybe depends on the comparison of the CISC and DISC processors and comparison of Harvard and von Neumann architecture and NDNS. So, while learning all these things, only we can choose a particular processor for our application. And the next one is programmable logic devices. So, these can be programmable and hence by using the programming methodology, we can change our design at any time. So, there are two types of PLDs are there. One is FPGAs and CPLDs. FPGAs are nothing but field programmable gate arrays. So, they can be programmable and we can use the logic devices to implement any design using FPGAs. And CPLDs are complex programmable logic devices. So, these two are the types of PLDs. And next one is application specific integrated circuits. So, this is also called as system on chip or whatever the design we have specified for a particular application. So all the components which are available or which are needed for that application are to be interfaced or to be connected on a single chip only. Commercial off-the-shelf components. So these are the extended version or extended feature of the architecture for the existing systems. So these are the components or processes required for designing the core of the embedded system. So we will discuss the next topics in the next session. Thank you.